To feel
honestly.
better, I've been doing pretty much nothing since quarantine started except reading fan fiction. So,
Okay, wait. Okay,
It's iconic.
that's juicy. I want to get into that, or I want to get into that for the actual podcast. But
I
like,
will. If we talk about my like writing origins, fan fiction will come up because that's definitely a big part of it anyway. So,
yeah. Okay. Well,
Wait, are
perfect.
y'all not doing the podcast yet?
I haven't started.
Oh my god, I've just been listening.
Yeah. No. Like I've started recording. And we have just come up with a good intro.
Okay.
It's just so dumb.
Pleased to meet you.
How's it going, everyone? My name is Dean. Welcome to episode 2 of the InkGuild Podcast. I'm joined today by Jessica, and we also have a new friend of ours coming in. Her name's Alex. You want to say hi?
hi.
And you guys obviously know Jessica, so, say hi.
So,
Like I've said in the first episode, we are part of, we're all friends that have a common interest, and that's writing. And I think after some discussion, more friends of ours wanted to join in, and Alex is one of them. So I guess for this first part, let's just talk about Alex. And more specifically, like just how she kind of got into writing. So I'll hand it over to Alex with this first question. What were some of your earliest influences when it came to like writing and storytelling?
I don't really know where to start. I've been writing basically as long as I can remember. But if we're talking about like stories that I read when I was little, I find that I tended to lean towards fantasy stories, which may be unsurprising, as you know, that's primarily what I write. And then also stories with animals.
Is there a specific example? Like, was there like a certain story that kind of hooked you from the beginning?
Well, apparently my favorite book when I was little was like a picture book called Go Dogs Go. I apparently had it memorized.
Oh, that's cool. Wait, who told? Like, did you not know that off the bat? Like, did someone have to tell you that you had it memorized?
I think so. That's what my mom used to say. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Um,
Yeah, that's what I was getting at. Like, was it your mom that said that you had it all memorized? Because that's pretty cool.
yeah. No, so I liked that book a lot. When I started reading, like I picked up reading really fast when I learned it in school, and so I was reading like chapter books pretty much right off the bat. So I read like Magic Tree House, was one of the ones I liked a lot. I read Junie B. Jones.
God.
And when I got a little bit older, I started getting into like the Warriors books. Um, and then like those like there's like a really specific genre of like kids chapter books that are about like girls who get to like live on a boat with dolphins or get to live on a ranch with horses, like that kind of genre I was really into as well.
Is there a name for that? Because I'm not too familiar with it.
I don't know, but there was like the Dolphin Diary books and the like, I don't remember what all of them were called, but they were all like that kind of thing where there was like a girl who got to go live with like a certain kind of animal. There was a lot of them. I read mostly the horse ones because I was really into horses, but there were other ones too.
Cool. So yeah, like a lot of us, you had been reading quite a lot as a kid. And to follow up on that, like was there a specific moment was there a specific moment where you thought, you know what, I could probably start doing this, like I could probably start being a writer too? Like, was there a moment, or like how did you kind of get to the realization that you wanted to be a writer?
I honestly don't really know. I remember like when I was like in elementary school, when I was really little, everyone was always like, "Oh, what do you want to be when you grow up?" And for a while, I was just like, "Oh, I want to be a teacher. I want to be a doctor. I want to be a vet." And then at one point, I I started saying I wanted to be a writer. I don't remember at what point that was. It just kind of happened.
Mm-hmm. Like, was that after reading all these books, or was it like after a class activity? Because like with Jessica and I, what like something that had happened for us was like one of our key moments was, you know, getting an assignment to write a short story in school, and I guess it was just so like it was pretty fun for us. Like, was that kind of the same thing for you, or like did you? Sorry,
I don't think I didn't have like a moment like that where I was like, oh, I want to be a writer. It's just like, or if I did have that moment, I don't remember it because it happened early enough in my life that I don't remember it very well. Because like I can think back to early elementary school and know that I had like story ideas that I was trying to write all the way back then. So I don't know if it was so much like at one moment I decided I wanted to be a writer. It was at like one moment I realized that I already wanted to be a writer. If that makes sense.
Yeah, so it's just kind of like it feels as if you were just kind of doing it the entire time.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah. Cool. So, I had warned Gabe and Jessica before this, and it might be a very interesting thing to start with, but Alex, do you want to tell us about your earliest works?
Okay.
Yeah, it's that same impending dread that like when I was saying it and when everyone first reacted to it, it's like, oh no. Just
Well, the thing is, like I said, I don't remember all of my earliest stuff because I've been writing for so long. So do you want like the earliest stuff I remember or the earliest stuff that is like
well, I mean,
still
yeah, like you like before we started, you had been talking that a lot of your early works had kind of been based around fan fiction, so like we could start with that.
Fan fiction didn't come till middle school.
Oh, okay. All right, so then we can get to that in a minute. So yeah, early works before middle school.
Okay, so one of the earliest things I remember writing was for like a school project in like grade 1, I think. We had to write a story about 2 animals. We had to like print it off and then we put it into a CD drive, or like not a CD drive, a CD case. And then we had like a plasticine like cover that we made, and so mine was about a dolphin and a seahorse. And they lived in the ocean together, and they were best friends. And they were sick of living in their cave, so they're like, we're gonna go find a new cave to live in. And they just like went around, and then they were like, oh, home is where the heart is, you know, cheesy 7-year-old story stuff.
That's so cool. Like what? Like I'd never like as far as I know at least, like no one that I know has done that kind of assignment. That's so interesting.
Yeah. There was a lot of writing assignments at like my elementary school now that I think about it. And then the next thing that I remember writing after that was another school assignment in grade 3. We had to write like something longish. This was actually probably technically my first fan fiction that I ever wrote. It was it was a warrior cat fan fiction. I didn't know that's what it was at the time because I didn't know that was like a thing, but that's like looking back on it, that's what it was. And it was like a 9-chapter, like you can't call it a novel because it was like 10 pages long, but
oh, that's pretty impressive though. 9 chapters technically for like what, in grade 3? That's pretty impressive.
And then grade 3 was also well, you know, growing up in Alberta, we have the provincial achievement tests, and grade 3 is like the first time I had to do that. So they like encouraged us to learn how to like do creative writing and stuff for the PATs.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of writing, but that's one I remember because I still have it somewhere. Very embarrassing. It was called The River of Blood.
Oh. All right, tell us about that, if you can remember it.
So I don't know if you've read the Warrior books or know anything about them.
I personally don't know a lot. Like I've probably, like if I've said that I knew what they were about, it's vaguely, like very, very few. Like Jessica, I don't know about you, but like I know little about it.
Yeah, I only know them from when I worked at a bookstore, and like all children would ask for them and then like start telling me about them. So that's pretty much it. But I know that it's like cats.
It's basically a bunch of cats that live in clans and, have beef with each other. And so like the first few books, or like the first series of books follows a character called Firestar. And then so I wrote a book about Firestar, and there were these other like kittens, and the river was like filled with blood. I don't know why it was filled with blood, but it was filled with blood. And then they were trying to like figure out how to get it back to normal. And then it resulted in Firestar picking up the kittens and throwing them in the river, and somehow that cleansed it.
Oh my god.
So
All right,
you
look.
just straight up sacrifice kittens.
No.
Oh yeah, were you sacrificing kittens? Is that what you were doing in grade 3, Alex?
I know, this is like, like every writer goes through an edgy phase eventually. Mine came early.
Yeah, just let's get it out of the way now.
Alex was like
They were fine, they lived.
Oh my god. All right. So, and that was for your PAT?
No. This was a school assignment.
Oh,
that was like prepare us for the PATs.
Yeah, because I can imagine it's like grade 3 Alex submitting in like this super edgy story to like as a PAT, and everyone's reading it like, what? What's going on here?
My teacher was actually very impressed. I remember that. He thought it was really cool.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's nothing cooler than an edgy story. Haha.
Oh.
Alright, so anything or any other kind of early stories that are worth talking about?
Actually, yes. After this, when I was in like end of grade 4 until like grade 5 and grade 6 was actually when I started developing my planet that that my story is set on.
You've been developing that since grade 4?
Yes.
Oh my god.
Sure have.
Oh my god. That's incredible. That's actually incredible.
It's been around for more than a decade. If you're wondering how my world building gets so in depth, that's why.
Yeah, like literally years worth of like speaking. So tell us about it. Like, what's this planet called in the first place?
So the main planet, because I actually have a whole solar system of it, but the main planet is called Katariana. It was named that because I had a thing for cats at the time. So the word cat ended up being in a lot of different names, most of which have been changed by now, but that one stuck. I actually had 2 stories in development at this time that still exist in my head, and they kind of like came together to create Katariana as it is now. One of them is actually The Diamond Dagger, which is the story I've been working on this term. So
shit, that's wild. Like going from like grade what, like that, like this was around grade 4, right? And then you jumped to middle school, which that's when you said you started writing fan fiction. Like what was what kind of led to that? So like what kind of led to that sudden change in like writing?
I'll say it wasn't like I put my world building on like a side while I did that. They kind of like went hand in hand. But it was like when I was in, I think grade 6 was when I was like introduced to fan fiction. That was like when I started going through my anime phase. So I just like I had a bunch of friends who were into that kind of stuff, and I was like, oh, fan fiction, I've never heard of that before, but it sounds fun and I have ideas. So I made a fan fiction account and didn't look back.
Like which stories were you like kind of doing specifically? Like you were big on anime at the time, like were you writing like anime fan fiction?
Yes and no. It was one of the fandoms that I had just gotten into at the time, which I'm still technically a part of, is called Vocaloid. I don't know if you know what that is.
I know what a Vocaloid is, yeah. I get it. Yeah, I get it.
So I got really into Vocaloid. So they're still up on fanfiction.net, by the way, because I never took them down. But yeah, I have a bunch of Vocaloid fanfictions, and then the biggest one that I worked on was a crossover between Vocaloid and an anime called Vampire Knight, which I
Ooh.
was obsessed with at the time.
Yeah.
Which I never finished that fan fiction either. Sometimes I still get emails from people like leaving comments on it going, when are you gonna finish this? And I'm like, it's been more than 5 years.
Oh my god, wait, how long is it then?
Oh, well, okay, so I had one that I think was 18 chapters approximately that I like wrote the whole thing and I finished it, and then I started a sequel and I never finished the sequel, which I think could probably find it. I don't know
Yeah.
how many chapters that one had.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you say that they're still up, then probably still there. We can find it at some point.
They sure are.
Yeah. So, like, what other kind of fan stories were you writing?
I think that was it for published ones. I had like a few other ideas. I had like a Percy Jackson, an epic like full-length Percy Jackson story idea that I never really went anywhere with. I got like 3 chapters into writing it before I gave up.
Yeah.
But I had like 15 stories planned. Like it was ridiculous.
Jesus. That it may sound ridiculous to like people who don't write, but like to me, like I don't know, like I can't speak for Jessica, but to me that's actually incredible. Like that's wonderful.
Well, I find this is a thing that I actually do a lot, is that if I look back at a lot of my early works, a lot of it is actually more planning than actual writing. So I'll be like, I'll have like lists of characters, like what they look like, what kind of clothes they like to wear,
Mhm.
like all like this detail about them, and then kind of where I want their story to go. But then I have like only a few chapters of the actual story written.
Yeah, I get that. Like I'll get more into it later, but like with my current project, that's how it started. Like I would spend months kind of developing everyone's look, the world itself, like, but no actual writing done yet. I didn't even open up a Word doc and actually start writing out like even just the chapter title. Like it was seriously just a bunch of planning.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh my god, wow. I just wing it. In all honesty.
You're a fantasy writer too, Jessica. You just kind of wing it from the start?
Like, if I have a rough idea, I'll just go with that and then see where it goes. And if I don't like it, I'll just scrap it and try again. Because I can't sit there for hours and a bunch of stuff. I get so bored.
I like the planning aspect of it though. That's why I have like 7 folders of ideas.
Yeah, literal folders, actual literal folders, and it's like nuts to me that like
My
I think
baby.
yeah, like I think I've put in time doing writing because I've been working on my story at least for like 5 years now. Nah, it's not like more than a decade. It hasn't even touched a decade. Like you've been working on it since grade 4. That's insane.
I'd say grade 5 would be a better approximation. I say grade 4 because grade 4 was when like the ideas started, but they didn't actually turn into anything solid until grade 5.
So, I guess as a like now you've been writing fan fiction at that point. Like, what was the other like? How are you kind of like switching between your fan fiction and your own stories, like your own original stories?
Well, like I said, when I started writing fan fiction was like in the early stages of like my anime phase. And I was getting really into like anime and manga and stuff.
Mhm.
And so that I started coming up with like anime or like graphic novel ideas, which kind of started off. So now I have like what I refer to as the graphic novel universe. And then I have like my Katariana universe. And then I have like a few stories in like other universes as well. My brain is very busy constantly.
Oh man,
but
I
yeah.
feel that.
Yeah, and then I hit high school, and then I stopped writing fan fiction as much.
How come?
I just kind of grew out of it. It was because, like, I think we talked about, like, I wrote a lot of fan fiction for Vocaloid, and I think part of what drew me to Vocaloid, as opposed to other fandoms to write for, was because, like, with Vocaloid, they don't really have, none of the characters have, like, set personalities. There's not, like, an actual story, so it was a place for me to, like, take my own ideas and then not have to worry about coming up with characters.
Yeah, I feel that. Yeah.
And then when I hit high school, I started wanting to take the ideas I had put into my fan fiction and start making them my own stories with my own characters. If that makes sense. And so I just
Yeah.
kind of the need for writing fan fiction kind of fell away.
So, like, you'd been writing for quite a while. Like, how has your like writing style kind of like evolved and changed since you started when you were when you were so young? Like,
How has it changed?
yeah, like how
Um,
is it like we all have our own unique kind of writing style, right? Like
mm,
over the years since you've been writing, like how is that? Like, have you how have you noticed your style kind of like form and change?
I don't know. I found like actually the writing of the fan fiction was really interesting with this because there was like my one story that I never finished. I had like some chapters that were I had months in between writing them, and I would like read the last chapter and then read the chapter I had just written and been like, these are like vastly different. So I think first I started trying to be like more detailed and more like poetic and like fancy and stuff.
Mm.
And at some point that grew to be like too much effort or something. So I feel like I tried to simplify my writing more. Makes sense.
Yeah.
Um, Actually, this was kind of why I brought up high school. Because when I was in grade 9, I took a creative writing class for the first time and was introduced to NaNoWriMo, National
Mm.
Novel Writing. And I participated for that for the first time. And
Like, how'd you hear
when
about NaNoWriMo?
Hmm?
Like, how did you hear about NaNoWriMo? Like, was it through a friend or social media or like?
It was my creative writing teacher talked to our class about it. I was like, we're going to participate in this thing. So every day in class, like, because it was every day in class, we had to come in, we had to spend like a certain amount of time writing. And so she's like, you can write either just like whatever's on your mind, or you can write for NaNoWriMo. And so
Mm.
I was like, oh well, that sounds cool. I want to write novels. So I started trying to do it. It didn't go well the first year. Um,
Yeah.
but then I
It
did
hardly
it
ever
again.
does.
Yeah.
That's true. But then I did it again every year in high school. So I did it grade 9 through all the way through grade 12. Finished it in grade 10 and grade 12. And I feel like that was the point where I really pushed myself, and that was the point where my writing actually started getting like solidly good. Because I was forcing myself to write every single day.
Yeah. So it's just kind of like, the more you do it, eventually you'll start like finding more things or finding out things about yourself when it comes to writing, right? Like, I get that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think before we start getting into like kind of looking back a little bit more, let's catch up to speed. Or let's catch everyone up to speed. Like, let's talk about your current works. So you said you're still working on your current story, which is like, if you want to
The
talk about
Diamond
that. Yeah, if you want to talk
Dagger?
about that. Yeah. Like, tell us about that. What's that story about?
Okay. The Diamond Dagger is about a girl named Alehe, which is a name in a language that I am making up. Um, and she lives in a village where she's kind of an outcast. And at one point, she is forced to leave the village and decides to basically seek out. I don't even know how to explain it, but she decides to seek out this item called the Diamond Dagger. And it kind of changes her life completely for a multitude of reasons.
Just it'll thing. It's coming along. I get it. Yeah. It's like when I kind of went into the class for the first time, that was one of the first stories that I had read, and it was super interesting. Like, the world building had been super elaborate, like from what
Well, yeah,
I
I
remember.
started it when I was 8.
Yeah, like, that certainly helps, right? But it really does come across in the writing, like just how everything was structured. Like, there had been so much thought put into it already. Like,
Yeah.
it was pretty obvious from the start that, for me at least, like, it was obvious that you had been working on this for some time, and it's interesting to know that it had been that long.
Yeah, I could like explain more of it, but I don't want to go into like all the details because I don't know how to explain it without, spoiling everything.
Oh, I feel that. Like, I want to talk about my story at least a little bit more, but Like there are people who are genuinely excited about it, and it's like,
Sorry, do you mean me?
yes, you. Like I like there are times where like I'm like revealing like scenes to you, and I'm trying to get like critical input at like for it, but at the same time it's like I know you are invested in these characters, and I'm so happy that you are invested in these characters. So it's like, oh shit, I don't want to give away everything right now. Right? Like I think
Yeah, I was gonna say I can talk about like the catalyst of this story now that I think about it, because it's early enough on that it's not really a spoiler, but I just it's one
do
of
it.
those things where it's like, what's a spoiler, what's not a spoiler, you know?
Like I'll let you talk about that in a second, but like it's so interesting to me that like, you know, joining a creative writing class and getting your input is one thing, but like now that, you know, we're all friends and we are so and for me at least, like we're all so invested in our stories, it's like, oh shit. Like I need the input because you guys know what you're talking about, but at the same time it's like I don't want to give everything away now. Anyway, yeah, tell us about the catalyst to the golden dagger.
Diamond dagger.
Diamond dagger. I'm so sorry.
Come on, Dean, get it together.
I'm sorry.
But yeah, no, this happens like after the point that you guys have read up to. But after Arahi leaves her village, she finds out that her perfect brother has killed somebody, and decides that's not okay. So she's actually going to get the dagger in order to kill him in turn.
Ooh. Very intriguing. Yeah, that's like that. I don't think that's a spoiler at all. Like
no, that's like literally in the first draft I ever wrote of it, I had chapter titles, and the first chapter was literally called "The Day I Decided to Kill My Brother." So
yeah, I
you
don't
just give it away right off the bat.
Yeah, like it's so I don't lead you guys on. Like I've got you right off the bat. This is exactly what you're going to be expecting. Here's how I'm going to say it. Yeah. Like that's basically like a blurb summary. Like it's the thing you would find in the back of a book that kind of catches everyone up to speed. So I don't think that's a spoiler at all.
There we go. That's good. But yeah, so that's like the biggest project I'm working on right now. I have so many projects ongoing though. It's because I have this habit of never ever letting anything die. So like I have
same.
Yeah, Diamond Dagger has been around since I was 8. Like these characters have been around for so long. Some of them are new because I realized I needed other characters to make the story interesting. Like yeah, some of the characters, and then so Diamond Dagger was one of the ones that kind of like started me off onto the whole world building thing. And then I also had another story at the same time that was kind of coming into existence that no longer has a title because the title was really dumb. But that was the one that like helped me build like the modern version of Katariana. Like Diamond Dagger takes place like way in the past, and this story takes place like in the modern time period. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So like a lot of your stories have basically been rooted in like fantasy. So like have you ever tried differentiating away from that? Like trying to like do shorter stories or like horror stories or something like?
I've tried writing short stories, but I find like no matter what I do, my stories always are all like, no, we're gonna be really long and convoluted. Like I was talking about PATs earlier. I remember I had never finished them on time because my stories were always too long to complete in the
Oh my God,
time
that's relatable.
Yeah. Like some of us had recently done a postcard song story, so we recommended each other a song and write a story under 500 words. And for me at least, it had been so interesting to do that because I have almost always written narratives longer than that. Like never have I written a story that short, and it's so interesting to see just like the differences between that.
Yeah, I also find, because I have written short stories before, obviously, like we had the one for the creative writing class, the I can't remember what it was called now, the project where we had to write like under 3 pages. Like I've done that a couple times. Also know, like, again, looking back to my fan fiction day, I had a couple couple like really short ones that I did.
Mhm.
But I find like when I write short, I can't write like in the moment. I tend to write like further back or like over a longer period of time with like less detail.
Yeah.
Yeah. As for other genres, I do consider myself mostly a fantasy writer. But again, because like my planet is kind of modern, it kind of branches into sci-fi a little bit, I think. And then I also have like supernatural type stories that I wouldn't really consider fantasy.
Yeah. I guess that's kind of like the beauty of the umbrella term, in my opinion at least, that is fantasy. You can kind of get away with incorporating different genres as long as you're doing it, as long as it's making sense. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you can have, like you can set it in the, like you can have modern elements to it, like cities, like, you know, skyscrapers and like cars, and just say it's a modern fantasy. And you could, you know, kind of change certain historical events around in a given time period. That's historical fiction, and even historical fantasy to a sense. Like everything, you know, one change in the timeline, here's this whole other fantasy timeline now.
Yeah. It's true. Ironically, cars are like the one thing that don't exist on my planet.
What? Okay, so what are the things that exist on your planet?
Okay, well, okay, when I was coming up with like the like modern parts of the planet, I knew I wanted it to be modern, but I also a lot of because it's like they're fantasy races, so a lot of them are very tied to the environment and nature and stuff. So I was like, I feel like they wouldn't like cars overall.
Yeah.
Um, so they don't have cars, they don't have airplanes. They do have trains or like equivalents of trains. They have bikes and stuff. When traveling between like different continents and stuff, they actually use portals.
Ooh.
So, yeah.
Yeah, that is, that's a thing. That's a pretty interesting way of getting around transportation. Transportation, I think, especially because, like, you know, obviously a lot of fantasy elements focus on like magic systems and like weapons and, you know, different races and whatever, but you have to account for like just how the hell characters get around, right?
Yeah, and one of the things that I find really interesting when exploring things like fantasy is kind of the intersection between magic and technology. And
Mm,
so with the portal system that I have in my world, there's like a race of beings that exist in this like solar system that use portals like magical portals to travel like great distances like in outer space.
mm-hmm.
They're these giant like creatures made of light basically that travel around space and consume stars. um, and then they decided to like settle on this planet, and then like the people who live there were like, hey, that's real convenient technology you have. So then they like found a way to adapt it to their own needs
Yeah.
basically.
Yeah, that's interesting how you've like handled your balance of the two, because in my world, like, my world does have cars, my world has guns, but not traditionally. Like, the guns in my world at least, like, and that's what's one thing, is it's based off the magic system that I've kind of interpreted. So there's 5 magic schools, I guess. In like, to summarize it quickly, there's a magic school for fire magic, water magic, air magic, earth, and lightning. And the weapons that are based in the world, or at least the modern weapons, so the guns, rifles, pistols, all that stuff, it's rooted from the magic system. So instead of shooting regular bullets, it shoots magical projectiles.
It's cool, yeah.
Yeah.
I haven't really thought much about guns in my world because that's not something I tend to think about.
Yeah, well, I mean, when you've got magic, like, why would you need a gun,
Yeah.
right? Because,
I've
like,
also been projecting my ideals a little bit onto my world, and I'm like, no, it's peaceful. They don't need weapons.
yeah, I feel that. I feel that.
I have
Kind
a
of.
whole story named after a dagger.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's just a dagger, right? Like, you know,
Oh,
there's no mass
it's
shootings.
not just a dagger. There's a whole lot of lore behind that dagger.
Yeah,
So,
I can imagine. I didn't mean any disrespect. I'm just saying.
no, I know.
Yeah. So, you know, you've been writing for such a long time, and I wanted to ask, actually, like, what was your support system like? So, like, who did you have kind of rooting for you the entire time?
Well, my mom has been super supportive. The first time I completed NaNoWriMo, actually, like I managed to complete the whole novel, and I have 2 printed copies of it in my house.
That's
Because she
incredible.
wanted a copy. I mean, creative writing teachers for sure have always been super helpful. Like, and then I was talking about when I was first coming up with this world. Like, I had my 2 stories going on. One of them was actually written with a friend of mine. Like the idea we came up with together. So I've had like a ton of friends supporting me like the whole time.
Yeah.
So it's pretty decent.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like, you know, every support system has its own way, right? But like certainly having, you know, having early encouragement from parents and friends, like that's what we were talking about like last episode, where, you know, we had the earliest encouragement from parents and like from parents especially, like I've said in the last episode, and I'll quickly say it, that, you know, it's good to have creative writing teachers and, you know, friends who know about creative writing that'll really help you improve as a writer. But just like those early beginnings where it was primarily your parents and friends that were, you know, telling you, oh, this is such a good story, you know, whether or not it was truthful or not, or whether it was just to encourage you to keep going, like it's so necessary. Those
Yeah, it
things.
is for sure.
Yeah.
Even like little comments sometimes. Like
Oh
you
yeah.
think about like I know it's so dumb, but I'm like so insecure with my writing sometimes just because I feel like society in general is so against it. If that makes sense. Like there's like obviously some value on storytellers. But like if you ever tell someone like, oh, I want to be a writer, or oh, I want to do X art related thing, a lot of people are very dismissive of that and are like, oh, you can't be anything, you're just going to be another starving artist. um
Mm.
you know, so it's something that I've struggled a lot with, even though I know like my mom obviously is there to support me. I'm not just saying that because I know she's going to listen to this later. um, but like, yeah, I know she's there to support me, even if it's not the like safest route to go through in our society.
Oh yeah, no, like there's, you know, there's obviously the thing, like I don't know what it's called, but it's like some kind of stigma surrounding artists where you really have to be in a certain kind of mindset to put yourself through so much patience, or through like whether it's visual writing, like music or whatever, like you really have to be in a certain like headspace to be so patient and to be so, you know, trusting of your abilities to continue being an artist, if that makes any sense. Like you really have to trust yourself a lot of the time.
Yeah, and I think I grew up with a lot of that because like I'm not just a writer. I grew up doing dance. I grew up doing like theater. I grew up with like music and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's always, and obviously, you know, I draw and stuff as well. So it's like all of the things that I'm interested in are the kinds of like careers that are really hard to do well at.
Yeah.
The kinds of things that like people are very quick to put down. So it's just it's always around me.
Yeah. Like there's certainly something special about creating something, obviously, but it really does take a lot of patience and a lot of determination to continue with a project. Like you can start whatever story or you can start whatever drawing, but if you don't have the patience to complete it, like not only are you not obviously not going to finish it, but it feels like you're just not really going to, you know, reach probably the talents that you're going to get to, right? Like for like obviously for every, you know, for every completed story there's how many unfinished drafts, but it's those victories where you finish a story that matters a lot. If that makes any sense. Like,
And you know, like you're always your own worst critic and stuff too.
oh yeah,
Like
absolutely.
I can write something and think it's terrible, and someone else might think it's like the best thing ever.
Yeah.
But like, just because one person says they like something isn't gonna change your own critique of yourself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like that's the same thing with like being friends with other creative writers. Like, I appreciate your guys' opinion a lot, and I'll account for, what will make my story overall better. But there's generally, it's you who does the writing, right? Like, you're the one who's typing out the story. You're the one who knows how it works. It's just the input from all of us, like that. It's certainly just there to help you improve, right? Because we all want to see each other improve, right?
Yeah.
Cool.
I think this support network that you've started is really good. It's good for all of us.
Yeah. I'd like it's for everyone who might not have tuned into the first episode, or probably if to the people who have heard me say it already, I was the one who kind of joined in to the creative writing class at the time that Alex and Jessica were in, and I just kind of, I don't know, I guess I just kind of found my way there, because I really, I'd been taking the creative writing classes in university, and I really fell for them. As in last episode, Jessica and I were in 1118 together. We were in 2265, and I was upset that I wasn't part of this current one, especially because obviously there are new voices, but my girls were in there. So I missed it, and I really did. And so I guess because of this whole quarantine thing, that allowed me the chance to really participate with you guys more, because I did have another class during the creative writing class at the time. And like I said in the first episode, I really hope my astronomy prof isn't listening to me, because there was one class that I missed. That there was one class that I missed specifically to go to that other class, and I'm so sorry, but yeah. So I guess long story short, I really like the opinion, and I really like the diversity that the entire class brought. So I'm like, why don't we all kind of start talking a little bit more regularly? And I knew how to use Discord, so I'm like, why don't I just start up a Discord, get everyone kind of involved? And I will say this until the day I die, that even though I started the idea, I will not take credit for it being so good, because I don't think I ever really have. But when people when Mari was saying on the chat a while ago that I was the class mascot, I'm like, no. That's sweet, but please don't. It's through everyone being so invested in each other's stories, and everyone caring about our success, our respective success. That's what makes this group work so well, or that's what makes, I guess, technically all of us be great friends. We all care for our work, and we all, I think more importantly, we all kind of get it, right? No one really understands a writer than another writer, right?
Yeah,
the age-old example is you go to a friend who's not done writing before, get their opinion on it, see what works, see what doesn't. But you go to a writer, and they'll tell you exactly what works and exactly what doesn't, because they know a lot more about grammar, punctuation, pacing. We just get it, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's what works so well with this group.
Oh.
Yeah. Guess that's a perfect way to end off this first half of this story of this podcast. And so I briefly touched on it before, but I wanted to get your guys' opinion on a little on something more specific. So as we get more people into this, I don't want to keep reintroducing myself. I don't want to keep reintroducing Jessica and Gabe, but I want to start talking about topics. And I think the first topic that I do want to start talking about is female protagonists in stories, specifically with YA, because that's the one that I'm more familiar with. But yeah, so I guess my first thing on that is, what's our opinion on female YA protagonists in general?
There's not enough of them, and they're not diverse enough, and basically that's my opinion on them.
All right, so we have a good opinion right off the start. I agree, for the most part, and we'll start delving into the specifics in a second. But Jessica, what's your opinion on it?
Yeah, I kind of agree with Alex. I think that there's
Excuse me.
a lot of YA books that have a female protagonist, but more like a Bella Swan type character where stuff happens to them. They don't happen to stuff.
The other thing that I noticed when I was thinking about this earlier is that a lot of the books that I like that have a female protagonist are usually like a female protagonist that I like are usually part of ensemble casts where there's like one or two female protagonists and then a bunch of male protagonists as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess let's start like really looking into that. So like first of all, like what are some of the tropes and some of the cliches that we can associate with the female protagonist? At least with the stories. Yeah, at least with the stories that we read. Yeah, and yeah. Oh yeah. Like I absolutely agree. Like there are so few stories that I can read with a female protagonist where they don't try to portray them as like the super strong, like super confident badass.
Yeah, basically that's like the main one. The other one that I see a lot is the not like other girls. Less so now because I think that's kind of gone out of fashion, but especially like books from like 5 years ago was really big.
Oh, especially in like contemporary YA fiction, it was like, yeah, I'm not like other girls and blah 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 blah.
Yeah,
it was awful.
There was one where, like, I think one of my tropes that I associate with YA books is that they really go into depth with, like, it's either they go super in depth with the female's appearance or just not at all. And they kind of all cram it in at once, or they, kind of spread it out throughout the book.
Yeah, that's also true. And I've noticed a lot, especially in like fantasy and like urban fantasy, they always like the female normal looking person, they always are, like can't ever just be like a normal looking person.
It's never just, yeah, she had brown hair and brown eyes and everything was fine.
Yeah,
so it was like,
Alex, you kind of cut out a little bit.
Eyes are like the nicest shade of like it's ridiculous.
Oh yeah, like there's this one series that Jessica's got me into called the Throne of Glass series by Sarah J. Maas, and I think the main character is the perfect, like, I guess pretty much the perfect summary of like having a very like visually stunning YA protagonist, where she has like
one of the ones I was thinking of when I was saying that.
Yeah, like she has like, like fair skin, golden hair, but it's the eyes that like is like that's the biggest deal about Aelin, where it's like blue, like turquoise, like gold.
Turquoise with like a golden ring or something.
Yeah.
Ash River eyes. And yeah, it's certainly a statement, right? That it's so memorable for all of us. Like, have we read the books? Like, Alex, have you read the books? Because obviously Jessica and I have.
I've read all of them except the last one, Empire of Ash. Is that the last one? I haven't read that one yet.
Kingdom of Ash is the last one.
Kingdom of Ash, that's it. I don't know if I'm gonna read it or not. They're not my favorite books.
Do you want to go down that tangent? We definitely can.
Oh boy. My biggest problem with them, with Sarah J. Maas's writing style in general, is the extremely forced heteronormativity and the questionable relationship dynamics.
Oh, I absolutely agree, though. I absolutely agree. Like, I swear to God, were it not for everyone kind of staying to like a boy-girl relationship, I would want Dorian and Fenris right now.
Oh God.
Yeah, like
my biggest one that I remember being like really upset about when I got to was, or like not upset about it, but I was like really, you're gonna try and make me believe that they're in love, was spoilers I guess for anyone who hasn't read it, was Manon and Dorian.
Oh no, that's my favorite ship though.
Okay, because my thing is not that I don't think they could work, it's just I feel like the way she put them together didn't work. Like
I
I
guess
just
so.
They
like
didn't get.
I've
They didn't
I've
get enough time.
so many
Yeah.
times to like my friends. I did not buy their like the budding relationship when it started. I'm sorry, I just did not.
No,
And
that's
again,
fair. Yeah.
I was also like pining for Dorian and Kale, or however you say
Yeah.
his name.
Yeah.
I was like, yes.
I called him Cal for the
I was
longest time.
the Manon and a lead. So
Yeah, it's a perfect top-bottom relationship. Like, I don't know why you don't do that. But, like, no, I absolutely agree, though. Like, Manon and a lead would be very, very cute. And I think it doesn't have to be, like, super sexual either. Like, it's just, you know, bring that up
I'm
more.
kidding. A not sexual relationship in a Sarah J. Maas novel.
I mean, if we know anything about those books, they really go into the sexual nature of it. Just saying. But like, yeah, like I think like Alex, you brought up Manon and Dorian, and sorry, I absolutely agree, because like I said, they're my favorite ship. But the way that they were introduced, and especially in the middle, like especially because it was such a pivotal moment to Dorian's character in Queen of Shadows, which is when they first like talked about it. It's like, wait, what? When was this possible? Like, when are you able to scare off like this demon thing just because you are you?
the thing is, like, when they first like their first like sexual encounter or whatever in the, I don't remember which book that is. I remember like reading that and being like, both of their lives have just been like completely flipped upside down. Why are they interested in having sex right now?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, maybe that's why they were interested in doing that at that time, because they were like, well, everything sucks. Oh.
Yeah. No, yeah, but like the thing is, like, I think someone brought up how like there wasn't enough time for them in the beginning, and I guess that's kind of your defense, because with Rowan and Aelin, they had the entire third book. Like,
Yeah,
they hated
really
each other at
got,
first. Yeah, like they hated each other at first, and like eventually through like learning more about each other, that's when they suddenly came around. And I can buy that a little bit more than I can buy Manon and Dorian.
Yeah, I feel like Manon needed more time to like connect and like get to know each other, instead of just kind of like right off the bat being like, yeah, okay, we're good to go. There's a tent over there.
Yeah, it's the same thing. Yeah, it's almost kind of like the same, like, I guess the middle ground, in my opinion at least, between like a sudden forced relationship such as, you know, Manon and Dorian, and a perfectly developed one such as Rowan and Aelin, is, I think, Elide and Lorcan. If you guys remember those characters, like,
I do.
Yeah.
That was what I was actually the most mad about in the book, because I hated Lorcan with like a burning passion.
God, I love Lorcan. He's so
he-
horrible.
yeah, like he's a perfect, like, he's a dick, absolutely, but just the way that they handled the relationship in the beginning, like, I actually kind of like that. Like, they were given enough time to, you know, hate each other in the beginning, and then eventually work their way around, you know, kind of liking each other. And
Again,
I felt like they...
so I don't actually know how any of this like ends, but I remember not liking that one in the books when I was reading it at all.
Interesting, because I
were a
felt
couple
like
moments. Sorry, we are talking over each other right now.
it's all good.
I was gonna say there were a couple moments that I've seen people talk about that I agree are like good moments, but just like everything cumulatively, I did not buy.
I guess that's fair. Like,
I have popular romance opinions in novels though, so
yeah, well, it's always fun to talk about these things, right? Like, personally, I love the series, and despite me acknowledging the obvious kind of issues with it, like, I really like the characters. The moments are really good, and I think compared to its sister franchises, A Court of Thorns and Roses, which I haven't read, but I basically know the story of because of Read with Cindy. Shout out to her, my favorite booktuber. And And her newest book, Crescent City, which I haven't read to completion as of right now, but you know that could change. Like Throne of like Throne of Glass really is something that has its moments, but ultimately, you know, you really have to think like, and I hate saying this because sometimes it doesn't always stick, but like you really do have to get maybe to the third book.
Yeah,
because
that's true.
Because that's when Rowan's introduced, and it's like it really fleshes out Aylin's character a little bit better. Because as you know, I guess as an assassin, she's not super one note. Like she still has a lot of depth to her character, obviously, but like when she finally starts embracing who she is, there's a lot more, you know, there's a lot more character to her. And I think
that was one of the things I thought when I was reading it was I hated Selena in the first two books, and then as soon as she became Aelin, I was like, okay, she's not as bad.
Yeah, like that's actually a trope that I wanted to discuss, and maybe you know, maybe I just haven't read enough series to really find that out. But like, it takes a good protagonist in general, not just female, but like it takes a good protagonist with a decent enough character arc to keep me invested.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
like,
pretty much.
Yeah, and I'm not sure. Like I obviously can't speak from experience because I haven't read enough like female-led stories. But like, what would you guys say? Like, out of the stories that you guys have read with a female protagonist, like how have their character arcs been handled, and like how has their like fleshing out and developing their characters, like how has that worked?
Wow. I mean, one of the authors I read a lot of is Cassandra Clare, obviously, because I've loved her for many, many years. And the Mortal Instruments books came out, like the first three, Clare was kind of an annoying protagonist. I mean, I liked her, but it wasn't like amazing or like groundbreaking or anything. And she was kind of annoying sometimes. But then, like, by like the third book, and then with the other three books in the series, she kind of, I don't know, she was like less annoying in a way. So I feel like that was a decent story arc.
See, I would disagree with you. I actually don't like Cassandra Clare at all, and I think she's the worst female protagonist I've read. I actually like her better in the later books when she's not the protagonist. Yeah,
that's true. I mean, Cassandra Clare's like following series, like following the Mortal Instruments, have gotten a lot better.
That's what I've heard too. Yeah.
Yeah, yes, like there's still some problems, but I mean, she's adapting and like being more inclusive. She's got like you know, LGBTQ characters. She's got a lot of like diverse people coming from like different places. And she has one autistic character in the Dark Artifices series. That's what it's called.
Yeah.
And so she's kind of working her way into, I guess, writing more widely. Yeah. So I'd say her character arcs have gotten better. Like with Emma in the Dark Artifices series, she definitely has a really good character arc. She starts off as kind of like a trope, like strong female protagonist, but then as you find out more about her, like makes more sense and you start to like her more. So yeah,
like I'm not too familiar, like myself, I'm not too familiar with Cassandra Clare anymore because I haven't read anything past, to be honest, I think I haven't read anything past City of Glass. Because after City of Glass, I was like, what the hell is going on? I have no idea what's going on anymore.
Honestly, I read the 3 books that follow City of Glass, and I was asking myself that with every single chapter. I was like, what the hell is going on in this book? I'm so confused. It was like, I read them because I was so like invested in the characters. Like Jace and Alec and Magnus and everyone, and I was like super invested. I gotta figure out what's going on. And she like introduced Sebastian, who is like Clary's like demon brother, and I was like, all right, sure.
Yeah.
So the last 3 books of that series took a certain, I don't know, dedication to get through.
Yeah.
I don't even remember what happened in those 3 books. Like, I remember like the first 3 books pretty decently. I remember what happened in like the 2 Dark Artifices books I read. I remember what happened in the Infernal Devices, but I do not remember at all what happened in the last 3 Mortal Instruments books.
In a while.
Is
The
it
last
just due
3 Mortal
to-
Instruments.
Sorry, is it just due to like, you know, just being like having read them so long ago, or is it just like quite literally like so many things were happening at once and I did not like catch a whiff of anything?
I don't remember. I started reading, or I read the first 2 books when they like were really popular, and then after the TV show came out, I started reading them, and then I read like all of them. Like I literally, and that was only like a couple years ago. Literally, the only thing I remember from the last 3 books was that Jason Clary had sex for the first time in a demon cave, and he had condoms, and I thought that was really weird.
Whoa. Okay.
Oh no, you forgot the best part of that scene. The best part is that it's Isabel and Simon and Alec, and then Jason Clary like go off to a cave or something, and then Isabel and Simon are like doing it somewhere else, and Alec is just there like, ugh.
Wait, what the? Oh my god. Okay, wait, hold on. Wasn't it, like, from what I remember about the Mortal Instruments books, wasn't fucking, like, Jason Clary related?
No, no. So at the end of the first book, you find out that they're siblings, but then in like the 3rd book, you find out that they're not actually siblings.
Yeah, because I'm like, that's what I was thinking when you said that they like in those in those last 3 they fucked, and I'm like, whoa, wait, hold on a minute, no.
Actually related by blood.
Yeah.
Jace was raised by Clary's father, so it's still kind of weird, but they're not actually related. So it's not actually.
So basically, what happened is the 3rd book. They go to like Shadowhunter City, like Alicante or however you say it, and basically everyone's like, "Yo, you guys aren't related," and Jace is like, "What?" And Valentine's like, "Surprise! I stole stole you from your father. Mother committed suicide after your father divorced her, and so she committed suicide, and I was just like, ooh, free baby, and I took you and raised you as my own. Also, you have a weird demon brother." Jace was like,
"This happened after a lot of angsty, incestuous breakouts, though." So
yeah, like,
trust me, she continued the angsty incest makeouts because Sebastian tries to make out with Clary like 4 times in the last 2 books. I was like, excuse me.
Reasons that I don't like Sandra Clare.
Yeah, like,
wild.
Oh no.
Wild.
Like, I respect the hustle of getting material out there, but like, you don't touch that.
It was honestly, when I describe those books to people who like haven't read them or don't read like Cassandra Clare series or whatever, they haven't read a lot of YA, they look at me like I am crazy, and I'm like, no, I swear to God.
Yeah, like,
this is actually what happens in the books.
Yeah, it's like, if I can probably like unashamedly tell someone about the Hunger Games, which is another series that I kind of want to talk about. Like, I can tell someone about the Hunger Games because it's quite literally just Katniss like joining the games because she didn't want her sister to get fucked over, and so suddenly how many pages later it's a revolution now. That's pretty simple, but like, everything that I remember from the Mortal Instruments is like, what the hell are they doing? Or what the hell is Cassandra Clare doing?
It's because it's Harry Potter fan fiction.
Honestly, it was wild. Let me tell you, the Mortal Instruments series was wild from like start to finish.
Yeah, I don't think I could probably I might be able to read her newer books because they're still kind of set within like the Shadowhunter world. But yeah, I have all 6 books, or I have all 6 Mortal Instruments books, and I probably should put them away. Because I
would agree with Jessica when you say that like her later books are better. I would rather read Dark Artifices and even Infernal Devices over Mortal Instruments.
Yeah, for me, the Mortal Instruments, I haven't reread it in a long time, but I keep it very close to me because of the characters.
Yeah.
Like, I grew up reading them, so the Dark
Yeah.
Artifices is like, can't even begin to tell you how much I love that trilogy of books. The characters are so ridiculous. It's great.
Yeah, like
Like, she's got so many like diverse characters. Like I said, she's like an autistic character. She's got like polyamorous characters. There's one couple that's like 3 people, like two guys and a girl. Then she's got gay characters. She's got 2 fairy lesbians who live on a deserted island, and it's great.
I don't think she handled all of her representation very well. Like, the trans character, I think, was handled really poorly. But like, I do. She is trying. I can appreciate that she's trying.
Yeah, like it's not like, just ham-fisting a relationship just because the times are changing. Just
essentially
at a certain writer. No disrespect, no complete disrespect, but like, what are you doing? But
I mean, she's trying and attempting. I mean, for most writers, it's pretty new territory.
Yeah.
Like when Cassandra Clare started writing, people weren't really all that concerned about representation and things. You just kind of wrote.
Characters were white hot people, mostly straight people.
Yeah, like, and that's actually another thing that I wanted to talk about. It's just, how do you write a good? I guess, like, I started off with like writing a good female character, but like we can just go into like open it up to like, writing people of color, like writing gay characters, basically LGBTQ plus characters in general. And I don't know how my handling of it has been that great, because I haven't really posed that question. But my character, or my lead character, is in the world, she is technically half white, half black, so she is a person of color, and her best friend is from an island, I think southwest of where the first story is set. So basically, your 2 main characters are people of color, and like it's nerve-wracking to me, like, kind of thinking about it sometimes, because like I'm just kind of writing these characters how I want them to be written. I'm not really accounting for everything, like, kind of around me. Like, I obviously know, like, the climate that is kind of around us, but like, I'm not trying to ham-fist any kind of agenda into it, or like, I'm not trying to, fit to certain tropes all that much. Like, I'm just writing my character how I see it. Do you know what I mean?
That, like, the best way to go about it is, because like your character, even if your character is like biracial, that shouldn't be their entire identity.
Oh yeah.
And I think people who like go out of their way to make that their character's entire identity, I think that's the wrong way to go about it. The best way to go about it, in my experience, is write them like a normal person, because that's what they are, and then do your research to avoid offensive tropes, and talk to the people that you're trying to represent and get their opinion on it in case you missed something.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, honestly, I read an article about like writing characters that are different from you. I mean, I'm pale with blonde hair and blue eyes, right? Like, so writing people who are a lot different than me. I was reading an article about it, and it was like, thought everything about your character first, and then add that in last, because like it doesn't define them in any way. Like, it doesn't make them any like different than anyone else. So that's usually how I do it. I usually, give my character their personality and stuff first, and then I kind of keep that in my mind, but add it on in like writing after, so that I kind of have their whole character like formed, or I kind of put that one piece in. But I think
way to do it, because then if you're like, oh, I'm gonna write a black character, then you're gonna have all these ideas of what a black person is like in your head before you sit down to write it. Whereas if you just like write the character first, then you go, oh, and they're black, and that feels like. Then of course there's also having to balance like if you take writing a story that takes place in our world, obviously being black is going to affect them in some ways that it wouldn't affect a white person. So that's also something else to keep in mind.
Yeah. Like,
Yeah.
I think even if you're not setting it, or even if you're setting in your own world where you kind of define how everything is, how everything is set, like who the races are, how they all behave and whatever, like you can't really, you still can't escape like different cultural norms and like the audience, especially that you're putting out to, right? Because if you, like, even if like the tropes that, it can be so easy to not kind of include all the terrible history that people of color and LGBTQ plus people have experienced, but like you're putting your work out there to people that have gone through these things, right? So I guess my point is like you should still be mindful no matter what.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, that's something we have to be very aware of in our society right now.
Yeah.
I mean, I think we should be in general, even if it weren't for like the way that's become mainstream. But like, it's definitely something that's very like out there right now.
Yeah.
Topical.
Yeah, like you can't escape it. Like, it's, I guess in my opinion, it's not too hard to kind of write a decent enough character. You just have to really focus on, what brings out all of their important qualities, what makes them special, all that stuff. And when you account for like, their races and whatever, like obviously you need to account for it, but not be super crucial about everything.
Yeah.
Because then it's like you're not trying to appease, you're not trying to write this book for for a certain political party. You're supposed to write it for an audience, and you're supposed to write it for you, like most of all, right? And suddenly when you start accounting for like, stereotypes and all that stuff, like if you lean too far into the negative, your story's not going to be received that well. But if you lean too far into the positive, then it's not going to be your story.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
I think it's like a fine line between the two.
Yeah.
Know that, like, especially for your book, Dean, I definitely didn't know that, like, it never occurred to me to think of your characters that way, because when you describe them, you describe, like, their hair color or their eye color. And, like, I know that you describe one character as having tan skin, so I imagine them, and I don't, like, it doesn't even register to me. But I think that when people, like, don't explicitly, state, like, oh, my character is, Indian. I'm like, I don't need that. If you have a good enough description, I can piece together your character, and like, it won't matter, I guess, to me anyway. Like, it doesn't even register.
Yeah, like,
it depends on the story though too, because like,
obviously.
I've read books that are like about being Indian, and so in that case, I think that's relevant. But if you're like writing a fantasy story or whatever, and your character is from a society that's like based on India, then saying that they're Indian would feel really out of place and awkward and unnecessary.
Yeah. Like, it goes back to just kind of being mindful of who you're writing to, even though I still say that you should be writing for yourself, but like, write for yourself, but just kind of be mindful of where your work is going to be going to, right? Like, most of the time, especially because it's fantasy, like your audience is going to be what, like 13 to 18, impressionable youth, I think.
Not necessarily.
Like, well, like, at least for me, like, my story is
writing like YA fantasy, yeah,
like, that's like, I have to be mindful that with my story, it's going to be going towards younger people, and they they'll make up their own assumptions because they're so young and impressionable, right? So like, you obviously want to set a good example, right?
Yeah.
Like, you don't want to think like, if like, you don't want to have like a certain moment where it's terrible, where it's like where it feels like morally or ethically wrong, and not just like, if you're just going to leave it in there and not kind of like do something with it, like if it's not relevant to the story, then it could really kind of set your entire, like, it could really kind of like deter like the entire focus of the story, because then people aren't really going to be focusing on like the characters or the plot or setting or whatever. They're just going to be focusing on that one moment and not let you live that down, right? If that makes any sense.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, like, I guess when it comes to, like I said, I originally started with like female characters because, that's probably something that you two have more knowledge of. But I guess just in general, like when developing characters nowadays, like it's all really about being mindful of, just being mindful of the world around you. Like obviously it should be your story, but it shouldn't be the public's either.
Oh.
Yeah.
My
That's
goal
a
is
good way to put it.
make all of my main characters not straight.
Yeah. I feel that. Like with the with how I've established my characters, I don't really think I can get around that, but like I'm hoping my character ends up being a good enough talker that I've imagined in my head. Otherwise, oh no. Like the amount of time like and this is just on a whole off thing, but like the amount of times where my characters have talked themselves into a completely different situation, I'm like, what the hell?
Oh god, I hate that.
like I
Over there, I want you to go over there.
yeah
Wait.
yeah no exactly, like it's like there was this one moment where where Porter and Magna are my main characters basically, and they are getting to their next destination, and one of the things that kind of is along the journey is a bakery, where they kind of spent time as kids and like they have a good memory there. And I was like, you know what, I'll just let them talk. I'll let them kind of reminisce on the memory. And for some reason I think I kind of like loosened the reins a little bit too much, because then it's like I legit ended up almost writing an entire scene where they just revisited the bakery, and I'm like, what? Wait, no, hold on, you guys have to get to this point. What are you doing here at point like B.5?
Yeah, no, you're like walking around and your characters are on those like little kid leashes, the ones that have like the backpacks attached to it that you like strap on your kid.
Yeah.
And you're just like following after them, like, no, we're supposed to turn this way, not that way. We're gonna get lost this way. We gotta go this way.
Yeah,
and
like
just like la la la.
yeah, like
I was daydreaming about one of my stories recently, and about like a conversation between like two characters, and I realized that my main character, like this is something I hadn't thought of before, but I realized that my main character would be absolutely like pissed at the character she was talking to. So sometimes it's like a good thing to just like let them off leash for a little bit and see what happens.
oh yeah, like
Oh yeah, sometimes you can get like the best scene you've ever written out of it. That's happened to me before, but then sometimes you're just like, why did you do this?
yeah, like I'm absolutely of the belief that you should let your characters have some banter, basically, like, let them kind of speak for themselves basically, and let them kind of explore the surroundings, think for themselves and whatever, like how you would with actual people. But at the same time, suddenly when you're so in the moment of these characters, it's like, what the hell, what how did we end up here? like
yeah.
Like there was a like in the thing, like in my rewrite technically, so in this current draft, there was that one moment that I was talking about the bakery, but there was another moment where quite literally it's like, they're coming back from this really big pivotal plot point, and it's like, wait a minute, actually no, it was before this big pivotal plot point happened, and it was Porter and Magna having some banter with a restaurant hostess. And like I thought, like at the time I thought it was kind of cute. It like brought out a lot of Magna's personality. Yeah, so like Magna's going over there, being like super energetic, super happy, and Porter's just kind of staying focused. And suddenly this banter happens, and it's like at the time I thought it was cute, but upon rereading it, it was like, what the hell is going on? This went so far sideways, and it really has nothing to do with the rest of the story. Right.
I do that all the time when I'm writing. Like it's like when you introduce characters to each other for the first time, and you just like kind of let it go and see what happens, and you're like, oh, this was a mistake. Come back.
Yeah, like you really have to control yourself sometimes, because then like there's getting lost in your scene, obviously. And I think when you get too lost, it's suddenly like obviously there's the point of like going so far off the plot that you have to essentially start doing damage control and whatever. But just in general, like finding that perfect balance point between, you know, letting your characters be themselves and still driving the story forward, like it's hard.
Yeah.
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 That's what editing's for, baby.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Like you certainly can't do that yourself. Like you need people who know what they're doing. And, you know, we were talking about that earlier of like being around people who get it, and we all certainly get it. So like
Because sometimes you can write something and you'll be like, yeah, I love this scene so much, and then you'll give it to someone to read and they're like, this has nothing to do with your story. I was really confused. And you're like, I love that scene.
Yeah, you're there with like teary eyes thinking, okay, fine,
Yeah.
I get it, but like you didn't have to attack me like that.
Kill your
Pretty
dog.
much.
The moment of my fanfiction account, right?
Do you want to drop your fanfiction
Everyone
account?
wants that.
Yeah, I'd like to now.
Oh my god.
Yeah,
Don't
like
read fanfictions, they're bad.
look.
Is there any good fan fiction though? I mean, all of it's a little bad.
There is good fanfiction, and I stand by that.
Yeah, honestly, like I stand by that too. Like when
Yeah.
I was 13.
yeah, like when Overwatch was at its peak, like there was some really, really good fan fiction of like, you know, people were writing out like whole narratives of like, you know, how Overwatch began, like the like, you know, different side missions that these characters were going during the timeline. It's so cool. And as well as the occasional smut, obviously, but like, you know, that's the kind of thing you have when with such a lore heavy story. And I guess just to play off a tangent, like I guess this is not really over, but like, can you imagine the kind of stories that like if we were to have our own like established fan bases, like the kind of shit that people would be making up with our stories and our characters?
I think about that all the time. I'm so curious. This is like one of my
God.
goals as a writer. If I ever get published, as I plan to,
Yeah,
hopefully, I want to know the fan fiction people write about my story.
Yeah, oh my god, like it's not even like thing. Like there are people who are like, you know, when they're doing like I think art in general where it's like, you know, you kind of think about like the house you're going to live in or like the store or like the, you know, the car you're going to drive or, you know, all the money you're going to be making of it. Like yeah, like I don't think about that personally. I think about like the fan art that people are going to be doing of like Porter and Magna and all my other characters. And like I think about like the stories that people are going to be making of that. Like it's so fascinating.
Oh my
to me.
god. Yeah, I feel like I'd be that writer who just like logs on her Tumblr under like a false username and just like writes fan fiction of my own characters for free on the internet and then like talks to everyone and being like, yeah, I really liked your story, dude. It was awesome. Yeah, those characters are great. Like, you did such a good job. And then being like, oh my god, you made artwork? Thank you.
Oh my god, I would be so appreciative of like artwork though, like because you know, yeah, like, you know, Alex, you and I did an art challenge recently with Marie-Soleil and Gabe where we, you know, drew each other's original characters, and just seeing that kind of interpretation of each of our characters, it's like, what would what would the public do?
Literally, I still have the things the art you did of my characters saved on my phone. I love it so much. It makes me so happy.
I'm glad you do. Thank you. That means so much.
Yeah, I still have the drawing that you made of like 4 or 5 of the characters that we all had like one term. I still have it, and I'm like, oh my god, yes. But I mean, my friend also, she made my first piece of fan art, so I was talking about it like years ago.
Yeah.
She just like painted a picture of my 2 characters, and I just like hang it up everywhere I go, and I'm like, this is so nice.
Yeah, like there's...
I don't understand how some authors are so against things like fan fiction and fan art, because I'm just like, how can you not love seeing people being inspired by your stuff? Is that not why you became a writer, to inspire people?
Yeah.
Oh my god. Yeah,
I mean,
like honestly, it's like don't you want people to like aren't you grateful that someone picked up your book, read it, and thought it was awesome, so they spent more time on it?
Yeah, like even like to be honest, even if it got like really really dirty, like if it went to start going into like smut territory, and I know that's such a weird tangent, but like even like smutty fan art, I probably wouldn't look at it for too long, but I'd still be appreciative, be like, okay, cool, thanks so much.
It would depend on which characters it was of.
Yeah, like I obviously like, oh my god, can you imagine like the different kinds of ships that people would start making of your characters?
Another thing, I have so many like sibling relationships in my stories,
Oh,
and I'm
no.
just like, well, that's
Yeah. If I know anything about the internet, oh no, you're gonna be waking up to a lot of different stories, Alex.
yeah.
Yeah, like my thing, like my main characters, Porter and Magna is probably a given because that's the story that I'm mainly telling, right? Like it's of their relationship, but it's interactions with like side characters that has me intrigued. Like I wonder like if people are gonna start psychoanalyzing more of this relationship, even though I haven't really given them that much. Like,
Well, they will for sure. That's how fandoms work.
yeah,
I'm like, which of my like random throwaway side characters are people gonna become obsessed with?
oh yeah, like
I cannot wait for the unlikely ships. You know, like the Draco and Hermione Granger ship from Harry Potter. Like, I
Oh
want
my
people to throw
God.
together characters I've created that, like, I would never have put together because I want to see them, like, justify it and be like, yeah, that's a good point. Honestly, maybe I should have written it like that. Thanks.
yeah, oh my god, I can't wait to see the kinds of like I guess just on ships, like I can't wait to see like the kinds of like interpretations people would have, like even if it's just like a throwaway glance at each other or something. It's like, oh fuck, there's fan art now. Where the hell did this come from? I didn't want this, but like it's kind of cool that it exists.
I have one story where I have like the main character or like the main couple set up, but then there's like one of them is really good friends with one of the other characters, and I'm like, I know people are gonna ship them. That's gonna happen inevitably.
Yeah.
Know already.
Yeah, I guess it just comes down to like how people kind of interpret the relationship, because if it's so good, right, if you're like if how you've handled their relationship thus far, even if it's so little, has been so good to them, then like they're gonna want to appreciate it, right? Like I think I can't confirm this, but like going back to Sarah J Maas's books, like back when it was still around book 3, like apparently there had been people who had been shipping Manon and Dorian since then as an unlikely one, and then suddenly
Introduced in book 3.
Yeah.
Like Manon as a character was introduced in book 3, but their relationship didn't start till book 4.
Did it even start in book 4?
Yeah.
Isn't that like the first time they met one time and then didn't talk again for something?
I'm pretty sure it happened in book 4.
I don't
Yeah, like,
remember. Too many
No
books.
hint towards it in book 4, but
Yeah,
in like book 3, Manon is like a totally separate like storyline. People started, they were like, yeah.
Storylines when she was introduced. She was like the character I enjoyed the most from in the series early on.
which one? Sorry.
Manon.
Yeah.
Manon was good, yeah.
Like my favorite character when she was introduced. I thought she was so cool.
Yeah. Like her first scene is literally just like staying in a cabin, and a bunch of hunters are about to hunt this witch, and then she just she lays out everyone. Like that's a great introduction.
Cool.
Like what?
She's such a good character.
Yeah, like what the hell did Aelin do? Like she was just in a fucking prison, and then she gets bailed out by the. No, I'm seriously like I'm not gonna disrespect that series, because, like, for one thing, I have a friend of mine who, like, I'm really good friends with, and she is one of the other people who introduced me to the series, and I would hate to disrespect one of her favorite series, so like,
Oh, God.
I'm sorry, I love you, don't at me. But
Oh God, see, and then there's me. I'm just like, as soon as like Aelin walks in and like Dorian's there, I was like, I like him. Okay.
yeah,
And then throughout the series, I was like, we must protect him at all costs. And then
Yeah.
bad things just kept happening. And I was like, excuse me, Sarah.
Yeah, like, ooh, that's an interesting conversation. Like, what's a good character introduction? Like, what's a memorable way that an author has introduced a character to you? Doesn't even have to be one of your favorite characters either. It just has to be like a good character introduction. Because for me, like, to kind of go away from Sarah J. Maas for a little bit, there's Leia Bardugo's Six of Crows duology. And
Yes.
I think from the very beginning, I fell in love with Inej right off the bat.
Oh, yeah. Oh, my.
I think Inej and Kaz.
Kaz,
Yeah.
yeah. Kaz's intro was like pretty good too, because you hear a lot about him at like the beginning of the book. And he just shows up, and he's kind of as bad as he sounds, but not really, because he's like, "You're bad. You need not do every bad thing. Like, I'm just saving time here." I was like, "That is awesome." Like, he's an efficient criminal.
Can I read the opening paragraph of a book? I
Yeah.
recommend it. It's
Yeah.
called The Library at Mount Char by Scott Hawkins. The intro is this. Carolyn, blood-drenched and barefoot, walked alone down the 2-lane stretch of blacktop that the Americans called Highway 78. Most of the librarians, Carolyn included, rode as the path of tacos, so of a Mexican joint they snuck out to sometimes. The guacamole, she remembered, is really good. Her stomach rumbled. Oak leaves, reddish-orange and delightfully crunchy, crackled underfoot as she walked. Her breath puffed white in the pre-dawn air. The obsidian knife she had used to murder Detective Miner lay nestled in the small of her back, sharp and secret. She was smiling.
Oh my god.
God.
That's a good
That's
character
right.
intro.
Oh,
in my
hell
opinion.
yeah. Yeah, that's
Oh,
a
God.
great intro.
First time I
Have
read
to.
it, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
so that's
another good character intro is definitely some of the kids in Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children. Like, some of them are just so good. I think her name is Claire in the books. She's like this little pretty girl, but she's got this like monstrous mouth on the back of her head. So they like sit down at dinner, and the main character is just like meeting everyone. And this little girl just holds up like a turkey leg, puts it to the back of her head, lifts up her curls, and then just reveals the bare turkey leg. And I was like,
Yeah. Oh my god. Okay, so I think my other shout out is not particularly from like a book, but it's from a manga and I think an anime. It's called Haikyuu, and there's this one character named Oikawa who comes to be a pretty big dick, but it's the kind of dickhead where it's like you hate to love him or you love to hate him. Yeah, you love to hate him. And how he was introduced was that so the main team, Karasuno, are the protagonists of the series, and they're in a practice game against Oikawa's school, Seiju. I'm probably butchering it, but like Oikawa was originally not introduced until I think the very last few moments of that practice game, where he just whooped everything. Like, he was amazing. And like, you know, Karasuno they barely got away with that victory in the practice game. And then like as the series develops, you really start learning more about Oikawa, and like that was a great introduction for him. Like a great love to hate dickhead.
awesome. Those are the best.
Yeah.
I was gonna say the other one that I had a really memorable character introduction for me was Vicious by V.E. Schwab.
Ooh.
Ooh.
The first chapter, you're introduced with him like he's like grave digging basically. But then I remember like the second chapter, because the funny thing about this book is it's kind of like a superhero kind of book, and then the first line of chapter 2 is Victor drew a steady straight black line through the word Marvel. And I always thought that was really funny because it's about superheroes.
Oh yeah, V. Schwab is amazing.
Nice.
Her Darker Shade of Magic series has, it's so good.
Vicious is one of my like all-time favorite novels that I've read.
Nice.
Yeah, V. Schwab is like, I cannot recommend her enough for fantasy reading. She is like, obviously like one of my favorites. She's so good.
Mm.
I
Okay.
100% agree.
Yeah. All right. Okay. That was fun. But I think now, yeah, let's actually fully end it. So, yeah.
Trying to derail.
Yeah. So, let's just all plug again, and there's something fun. I'll leave that part for the end, but yeah, let's all plug. I guess I'll start. On Instagram, you can find me at Daniel Cordero, which is my full name. I'll leave that in the description. Alex, what about yours?
My Instagram is Whimsical Empyrean. Again, spelt funny. I'm sure you'll link that as well.
Yep. Jessica?
A very fictional review. No capitals, no spaces.
Yeah. All right. So, I guess as a final thing, and I guess for future episodes moving forward, let's each recommend a book. Or let's each recommend a book. And I think mine would definitely, like, mine is a little bit biased because it's the one I'm reading right now, but Crescent City, which is Sarah J. Maas's most recent book, it's everything that you've come to really expect from her work. So, you know, like pretty nice story, like pretty nice, like world building, characters are pretty nice, like their conversations are good. And I think what really separates it this time around is that it's more marketed towards like it's now like a full-fledged like adult fiction, not in that way, but like really, there was this post where it's like for every fuck in Crescent City, that's everything that either Aelin or Feyre from A Court of Thorns and Roses could not say. And I could not agree more. Alex, what's your recommendation?
I'm like, I just recommended 2 books. I don't have another one to recommend.
You could just restate it. Restate one.
Then I'll recommend, because it's less well known, I'll recommend The Library at Mount Char by Scott Hawkins.
Cool. Want to tell us a little bit about it quickly?
Yes, actually, we were talking about female protagonists earlier. This one has a pretty good one. Her name's Carolyn. She grew up in a library that was disconnected from the normal world, and it kind of like follows her story after she gets locked out of said library that she grew up in. And it's a weird book, for the record. It's one of the weirdest books I've ever read. It's really good, and I really recommend it.
All right, Jessica, what's your recommendation?
Well, since I just finished the series, I'm gonna say Raven Boys by Maggie Stiefvater. It's like a YA fantasy series, and there's a lot of magic and like shenanigans, and like it's funny, but it's also like it's amazing. There's lots of magic and like lots of unique things, and all of the characters are like phenomenal, and they're all very like fleshed out and everything, and I love all of them so much. Like there's a follow-up series I think that she just started writing too about one of the characters, so
Nice.
yeah, Maggie Stiefvater.
So good. I also recommend this.
All right, cool. This was episode 2 of the InkGuild Podcast. With any luck, episode 3 will be coming out soon, and that one will also be a very good addition because it's introducing another friend of ours and trying to get his perspective, I'm excited to hear a lot about his story, or his stories rather. So stick around for that. Thanks for listening, everyone, and goodbye.